Today we are here with Crispin Manners. He's CEO of ONVA Consulting, UK agency, and most of all, and beside of all the knowledge and all the experience that Crispin has in the marketing area, he also is an excellent author of several books, and one of them is Grow, Build, Sell, Live. And this is the last book, and we're going to talk about a little bit about this book and how we should think about sales inside of our organizations and how marketing should coexist with sales to a better performance. Right, Crispin?
Yeah, it'd be great. It'd be great to have a chat about that, particularly now in the tough times we're all facing.
Yeah. So, tell me, what exactly is sales? Is it just a process, or is just a trigger, or is just an act?
Wow, what a question. Well, personally, I think from a business point of view, sales makes the world go round. Okay. Because sales basically satisfies the needs that customers have, and it's a really, when sales is most effective, it focuses in on the pains and needs that customers have, and it makes it really easy for them to buy a solution that satisfies those pains and needs.
There's always the question, okay, sales do that, but how we get into the sale or the selling moment?
Well, I think that's quite interesting. I mean, from my point of view, here we are talking remotely over a Zoom link because most of us are now working from home where we're able to work from home, and because of this terrible virus. And although there are some awful things about the virus, I think one of the things it's done for us is it's acted as a wake-up call for many facets of our life. And in the sales world, I think it's a definite wake-up call, because what it's identified is that if you haven't got a purpose for your organization which matches with the purpose for the individual or company you're selling to, then you're really going to struggle at a time like this, when people are only really going to buy things that they believe that they need. Mm-hmm. So for me, sales is a lot about belief, and that's why, I mean, in your introduction, you talked about the relationship between marketing and sales, and typically, historically, people have described marketeers as people who create that sense of belief that a salesperson then goes and satisfies. I've never been a fan of keeping those two disciplines separate, because I think when it comes to belief, they have to work together if the organization is going to operate at its most effective.
But let me just play around a bit and tease and do just a small tease. But all of us always heard about the silent war inside of the organizations between sales and marketing. This death war didn't brought along the years an effective process to companies, and how should we, if so, how should we do it to make it work correctly and make it profitable to everyone and make it more optimized as possible?
Okay, well, I think the point you make is an interesting one, because I think what it represents, what it describes, is organizations that focus on what they do rather than why they do it. So I'm sure people listening or watching this will have come across a really smart guy called Simon Sinek, and he's got a really simple way of explaining how inspirational leaders and inspirational organizations gather belief in the audiences that they're targeting. And you know, he summarizes that as three things: why, how, and what. And I think the battle between marketing and sales that you've described was allowed to develop in organizations which focused on what they do. And there was therefore a desire for marketeers and salespeople to try and demonstrate that what they were doing was more valuable to the organization. If, however, they were more purpose-driven and had a very clear why that everyone in the organization buys into, there's no requirement to have that battle internally, because everyone in the organization is trying to deliver against the same purpose. And I think that's one of the most valuable things that could come out of the COVID crisis, is that I think it's made people really think about their personal why am I here, what do I want out of my life, but also their business why. What do I want to achieve in the organization that I work for? What do I want that organization to represent? Do I share the same purpose that the organization has? And you know, there's some statistics coming out now. I mean, I read some research this morning which said that, you know, at least a third of people are now thinking about changing not just the company that they work for, but the career that they have, because they've realized over the last few months that they don't share the same why, either as the company that they work for or the type of industry sector that they're working in. So for me, we can put all of this internal fighting between marketing and sales behind us if the organization really crystallizes why it exists, why customers would give a damn that it exists, and why employees would also want to work there.
Yeah. Just to complement what you said, for those who will be listening to us, you were talking about a TED Talk that Simon did a few years ago called The Golden Circle. And also Simon has a book focused on that is Starting Asking Why. And it's easy to find out everywhere. But you also wrote a book, and it's focused on selling teams and how B2B sales should be done, and a little bit focused on agencies, yes, but with a lot of practical guidelines that can be implemented in any kind of organization. Do you want to talk us a little bit of it?
Well, yeah, I mean, thank you for the opportunity. I think the particular focus of the book is to help people recognize that they have much more choice over how they develop their business, and therefore who they sell to and how they sell to them. So, I mean, I've already mentioned purpose many times, but to me, that's the beginning of becoming more effective, both in terms of a leader, but also in terms of a salesperson. So the book covers off how do you develop a purpose for yourself and a purpose for your organization that gives you more clarity over the choices that you make every day. The second key thing that we cover in it is that the more specific and explicit you can make your purpose, the easier it will make the sales process. And I think there are a lot of organizations out there, and Simon Sinek in his TED Talk video covers this point off really quite well, in the sense that he explains that in many sectors, competitors end up sounding very alike. They have what you might call a very vanilla flavor of what they stand for. And a lot of organizations do that because they feel that if they make themselves sound very different to their competitors, they may miss out on opportunities within the market. But I think what Sinek talks about, and what I've seen happen over and over, is that the more different you can make the reason why you exist and how you then satisfy that reason, the more effective your sales process will be, because you will actually stop wasting your time trying to satisfy people that you can't satisfy.
And you'll be more focused on your market and your buyer persona, right?
Yeah. So we have a very quirky food product in the UK, which is called Marmite. And Marmite is made from yeast extract, and it's you spread it on your toast and you do other stuff, things like that with it. And it's one of those products that people either love or they hate. And the marketeers at Marmite have done a very good job over the years of playing up that difference that says, you know, are you a lover or a hater? Because what they want is they want the people who love it to love it even more. Yeah. And for me, it's quite a good metaphor, if you like, for what all organizations should be trying to do. They should be trying to make themselves as Marmite as they possibly can, so they turn away the people that they can't satisfy, and make it easier to sell what they've got to the people that they can. Yeah,
I understand completely the example, because I belong to the haters. It's not the type of product I would love it. Nothing against it, but it's not my type of taste. But interesting the way you put it, because you talked about one thing that is very important also, at least in my point of view, is the sense of community that you should create around your brand and around your company, besides the sense of community that you need to have it around a product or a service, to make it last longer and to make it the process of rebuying or reselling it more often. And when we are in a market as the one that we are now, where people are going to stick on the basics and on the things they feel they will belong with or to, it's easier when you have the sense of community. And that helps also not only the marketeers, but also the salespeople to achieve their goals, their gathered goals, of course.
Yeah. Well, again, I think the point you're making there is a really good one, because another thing that the COVID situation, I think, has reminded people is that with so much choice of where they can buy certain things. I mean, you know, if you're going to buy a television, there are a lot of places you can buy it from. There are a lot of brands that you could buy it from. I think what COVID has done is it's made people realize if they're going to exercise that choice, they would rather choose an organization which has similar values to themselves. Yeah. So I think what COVID has really started to highlight, even in you could say even, but especially in the business-to-business environment, is that people want to not just have a rational relationship with the organization they buy things from, they want an emotional bond as well. Mm-hmm. And, you know, again, the Sinek video talks about this in the sense that, you know, companies which are just as good as Apple at creating products fail in selling those products because they don't create the same emotional connection with the consumers out there. And I think what what we've done with our WorldCom confidence index tracking of what leaders are thinking about, it's demonstrated in the last 6 months that there is a definite requirement to make your purpose for your business connect with something bigger. So to give you an example, I know a really great organization in the UK. They're called the Bear Kitchen, and their purpose is they want to change the world by changing the way we eat. Okay. Now, obviously, they know on their own they can't change the world. So they're not being arrogant about this, but what they're saying is actually each of us in our own small way can make a huge difference if we all start to do very similar things. So, and changing the way we eat could have a huge impact. And they then go on to, so that's their why, and they then bring their how. They bring their how into perspective, and by explaining, educating people how they can make that difference, and how by eating certain types of foods they can change farming habits, they can do all sorts of things. So I think organizations have got that opportunity now to explain how they can make a difference to something much bigger than just the products or services that they develop and deliver. So
with this, we can apprehend that not only the brands need to change the way they communicate, and they do it by marketing and sales teams. Although these marketing and sales teams need to change the way they talk, and the talk they need to do is talking about their why, their reason of existing, and how they can do that why, more than talking about the what. And yep. Almost, I'm not going to say forgetting, but almost putting the what as the deliverables that are mandatory to make it happen, but with not giving them the relevance that had until now.
Yeah.
Is that so?
Yeah, absolutely that. And I think people who focus on that now will not only emerge stronger from this crisis, but they will perform more strongly during the crisis, mm-hmm. because what they say will be much more compelling. I mean, I know we live in terrible times, and there's a big recession looming, but the reality is even if the market shrinks by 20%, for the majority of organizations that are out there, and if you think about most agencies, even if the market shrinks by that much, for most agencies, that still leaves a hell of a lot of market available for them to benefit from. So in a competitive environment, if the market's shrinking, all that you need to make sure is that you're as compelling as possible to the people you can satisfy, mm-hmm. because there is still money out there to be spent. So I think there's a really good article published in the Harvard Business Review called Roaring Out of Recession. And they did a study into how businesses responded to the last 3 or 4 recessions. And they wrote this article after the financial crash in 2008. And basically what they identified is that the organizations that performed the best were the ones who really focused on how their customer needs had changed and provided a new and more effective way of satisfying those needs. So to me, if marketing and sales are going to work together, marketing teams should be able to bring much greater clarity about that change need faster, so that the sales teams can go out and satisfy it. And I think, the COVID situation has brought that opportunity to organizations if they're prepared to grasp it, to take advantage of it.
Okay. Thank you, Crispin. It was a pleasure to talk with you about this, now where you helped us rethinking and never forgetting the way that the communication is changing and how the communication is a key factor for marketing and salespeople to get together and be focused on the most important thing in any kind of organization, that is their why, their mission, their values, and the way they need to be they need to recognize and be recognizable by those teams on their everyday work. And when that happens, it's easy and obvious that the client and the consumer will understand it and will see it. This is really interesting to make it, because from all the conversations that we had until now, this is something that always come to everyone, is the communication side and the content that will be developed needs to bring relevance and the why. And that's the coolest thing that we can find out nowadays, is the market is changing and is recognizing that as a key issue for continue communicating between companies and between companies and consumers. Thank you.